want to have a conversation about something that has come up in a lot of different instances recently for me. So, and it is about parents wanting to do things that are not customary for their kids.
Yep.
So, one of the things that has come up in 3 different cases for me over the last 6 months is parents who, one or both, want the child to attend virtual school so that they can live half their time in one place and half their time in another place. So, obviously, if 2 parents agree...
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you can reach an agreement as to anything you want at all with your kids. And it's one of the reasons why we encourage our clients go to mediation, right? Because when you go to court and you have these kind of, you know, unique concepts on how to raise your child, you may not get a judge who's going to agree with that, or get a judge who's going to worry about the specifics that are so important to having some kind of, you know, out of the box arrangement. But in mediation, you can do whatever you want, as long as you are literally not committing a crime, right, by anything that's in your parenting plan. How are we going to do that? As long as you are not committing a crime with anything that is in your agreement, you can agree to whatever you want. I mean, you could have your child switch homes every 24 hours. You can have them, you know, live somewhere else for a month and then come back. I mean, you could do whatever you want. So if you want to go to mediation and reach a type of agreement, you absolutely can. You put them in virtual school. They spend half the time with one parent, half the time with the other. And then you can just figure that out until they're 18.
Yeah, and so once you have the agreement and it's in place, then that is what it is, unless there is a substantial material and unanticipated got
removed.
Substantial material change in circumstance. So once you've locked that in, the fact that your kids have gotten older or that, you know, you don't like it anymore is not going to be a reason to modify it. Now, if there are problems, you know, the kids are failing in school, having emotional issues, any number of things has happened, then that may be a basis for a modification. And so then the question becomes, and this has come up a couple of times, is, okay, so now we're back in front of a judge, and this is what you have been doing because you agreed to it at one point. But now you don't agree to it anymore, right? And now we're back in front of the judge for a modification. Like, what is the likelihood that a judge is going to enter a court order that says this child's going to stay in virtual school and live half their time here and half their time there, especially when most of the time, I think when parents do agree to that, kids are younger. And when we're going back, now they're older.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, you know, you have to think about, and I actually just said this earlier today, you have to think about what kind of situation you envision for your child when they are older. Because a 15-year-old that is spending 1 week in one county and 1 week in another is going to miss out on half the activities with whatever group of friends they want to hang out.
Like, they can't play soccer.
They can't do anything. Like, they can't even really, like, what if, like, the birthday party is in the other county? Like, you have extracurriculars. Your 2-year-old, it may not be a big deal, right? They are just hanging out. But when they want to do extracurriculars, when their friends want to do extracurriculars, you know, it really is, I just cannot imagine any judge being okay with that kind of setup. I just can't. It is something that is, you know, if it works for you and you want to reach an agreement, that's great. But honestly, it is not something that our judges would do. It is not conventional, and it is not providing something that the courts really want to provide to these kids, and that's stability. They want to provide stability for all these kids in these litigated family cases, and that's not doing that.
Yeah, so next up on this list of, like, non-customary things is homeschool. So that issue has come up for me quite a bit recently. And again, obviously, if both parents agree that you want to homeschool your kids, you homeschool your kids. Easy breezy, no problem. But if the parents don't agree and one wants to homeschool and the other doesn't want to homeschool, then it becomes a best interest conversation. And I, if you have been homeschooling for a long time and it's been successful and things are going well, that's certainly going to be different than if you are suddenly coming in and wanting to homeschool. And so what have you seen, or what are your thoughts about the homeschool situation when they don't agree?
I mean, I think that a lot of judges kind of, they go along with the more traditional approach. I mean, that's really what I have seen, brick and mortar, and they think about concepts such as, making friends and socializing and all that stuff. So I think that traditionally our judges kind of go on that. Now, that's not to say it's going to happen in every case. Like, I know a family that tried 2 different schools and it did not work for the child. And the moment they put the child in homeschool, the child has flourished, right? And those are such important factors to consider. And to present at the time of a hearing for a judge, because it's always going to be what's in the child's best interest. So if you have tried brick and mortar, it's not for your child, it's not for every child, and you can prove that to the judge, then you obviously have a pretty good argument to make in court.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, it is a difficult thing. If you're the one wanting to homeschool, you really have the obstacle to get over, the hill to climb. And for me, I feel like for a judge to order homeschool, there really has to be a reason, like a child that has really severe allergies, right? Or severe behavioral issues, or
there's some kids that have severe anxiety issues to the level that they cannot function properly or focus in school or even socialize at the level they need to at a brick and mortar. And so homeschool works for those families.
Yeah. But I think what judges want to see in those instances is that homeschool is part of a bigger plan to be dealing with the child in a more global way. And judges also need to see that if you're going to homeschool a child, that you're going to do all the things we know are required to make homeschool effective, right? That they're going to have community engaged activities as well, that they're going to have a structured day, that there's going to be follow-up. Like, if you're not, as a parent, willing to do all of the pieces of homeschool.
I know parents that have excelled at that. And, I can think of instances where there would never be a court order sending this kid to a brick and mortar. I mean, I know parents. I know, for example, a mom who literally works from home 5 days a week. She is on top of it, has a schedule, color coordinated, and she has her child in, I guess they're called homeschool pods, so that they can go out and go to a museum, go to an aquarium with other children that are homeschooled. And that allows them to socialize, which I just think is phenomenal.
And those are the things you really need to have to make homeschool effective. And so you cannot, this has come up recently in one of my cases, there's one parent who wants homeschooling, is excelling in homeschooling, is doing all of the things. The other parent had agreed to homeschooling, right? And on paper said that they would do it, and they are doing the work, but because of their work schedule, because of their life, the child is literally sitting at their house alone for 7 hours a day. So, and that parent is saying, look, I agreed to homeschool before, but this isn't good for my kid, and I don't really have any alternatives. And in those kinds of situations, if you cannot have a structure that is going to provide the child with stability every single day and follow through and all of the more emotional services that they need and engagement they need, then a judge is never going to grant it.
I agree with you.
So last up on this conversation, and yes, I'm telling you that every single one of these things has come up for me in the last 30 days. It's
been that kind of month.
Yeah, it's the gift I'm being given. So next up is vaccinations and medications.
Yep.
And I know you have a tremendous amount of experience in this area with a couple of cases over the last couple of years. So what have you come to think about it?
Again, mediation is such a great option because you can reach these kinds of agreements. But, one of the more recent cases that I have, it's interesting because, history is really relevant to some of these judges, and I think it's probably one of the major factors that they consider is what historically has been done. I have a case where the child's older, I mean, close to 10, and the parents, when they were together, decided that they were not going to vaccinate their kids, and that was a joint decision the parents made. She's probably like around 7 or 8, I think. And so the difference now is they are separated. Dad got a new girlfriend
who believes in vaccines.
Super vaccinations, all the vaccinations. And so now Dad, obviously, now he wants all the vaccinations, and Mom's like, well, no. I mean, what are you talking about? We had this agreement. So I can tell you that in that case, in those circumstances, a judge is going to say, listen, this was a decision the two of you made for a long period of time. We are not going to change that now. You know, and I think that is something that is really, really important. Now, it's different when you have a teeny tiny baby, right? I think that's a very different set of circumstances. And so, unfortunately, the answer that I have for that is it depends. Because it depends on your judge, and it depends on your reasons. It depends on your county. It's so much. So it's so hard to give like a cookie cutter response to that. You know, and people are divided on that issue.
So when it comes to vaccinations and medication, I was dealing with this recently, and one parent was wanting no vaccinations ever, and the kid's probably like 4, so she had not had vaccinations yet, but she's still young enough that it could be done. And, you know, when they were together, Dad had said, fine, no vaccinations. Well, now Dad's not really okay with signing something that says the child will not ever be vaccinated. So Dad really wanted to have written in the parenting plan that the child will not be vaccinated unless medically recommended.
Okay.
So what do you think that would accomplish?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
that's super interesting. Sounds great in theory. So